All right, good evening, guys. It is now 7:45 p.m. on this third day of February 2011. We'll take a quick peek at the visible satellite. As it was noted earlier today, you can see that wide swath of the heavy accumulating snowfall that was dropped here in the northeast, straight through the Midwest, and then down through much of the plains. All of that white you see that is not moving is light being reflected off of that thick snowpack back toward the satellite. So all of this is snow that was laying on the ground, and of course that very cold air mass that ushered in behind that powerful winter storm has indeed locked in this accumulation, and it will be hanging around for quite some time. And of course that lingering snowpack is even on some of the roadways still. The state DOT is having to play a major catch-up game to get the primary and secondary roads clear of that snowfall. So some lingering travel headaches, a reality across many of these states that were hammered by that blizzard system. And even now, the wintry precip has shifted from the interior U.S. right down across the immediate Gulf Coast, where we have winter weather products in effect from the Western Carolinas all the way down to Brownsville, Texas. And we can take a look at that on the National Hazards Map. All of these products currently in effect by the National Weather Service. You can see that freezing rain advisory here in the Western Carolina. Further south of that, winter weather advisories in effect, and then a wide swath of winter storm warnings here in Mississippi, Louisiana, and then right down into Brownsville, Texas, where they could be anticipating a half an inch to an inch of snow. Certainly a oddball event for them. They are certainly not acclimated to any type of winter weather down there, so it's going to be a nice wintry event for them. Here in Louisiana, Mississippi, round one of the wintry precip has already come through, causing some icing conditions on power lines, trees, and roads. I did see earlier some highways here across south central Louisiana, and other portions of Louisiana and Mississippi were actually closed. So though the ice accumulations have been light, it has been enough to cause adverse weather travel conditions. And then even here in Mississippi, we have had one fatality from a wreck related to slick roads. So the precip may be light in your area, but it may be enough to cause slippery roads, so you got to be careful out there. And like I said, round one has come through for these areas, and we'll have another area of precip developing and moving across this whole region with that cold air mass in place. It will be wintry for some. Now here in Western North Carolina, I'm going to focus on this particular video for the potential for freezing rain and sleet, because that's where I'm at right now. So we'll take a look at the southeastern sector radar. A lot of these returns over North Carolina, not reaching the ground. It is falling through a layer of relatively dry air above the surface. So anything that is falling is evaporating and cooling our temperatures down. However, here across the western upstate of South Carolina, northern Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi, this stuff is reaching the ground in the form of wintry precip and some patches of rain. We can take a look at that on the surface observations. And one thing I'd like to quickly note here, temps here in the western North Carolina region were a lot warmer than it was here across Mississippi and Louisiana. Certainly an odd thing to see. The official high today at the Asheville airport was 40 degrees Fahrenheit. Meanwhile, Baton Rouge was 32 degrees Fahrenheit for their official high, and you can see they're still hanging around that. That has resulted in that freezing rain and sleet to fall. Still some being noted here across south central Mississippi, and then some wintry precip here across northern Alabama, and then mainly rain here falling across North Georgia, though we do have a small location here in the northwestern corner of the state that has switched over from light snow to freezing rain. So these warmer temperatures across western North Carolina are going to have to be cooled down to or below the freezing mark for us to see any appreciable accumulation from this precip that will eventually start falling. Now the thing is, we are not having any cold air advection with the system, nor are we going to have any radiational cooling. We can note here on the infrared satellite overcast skies for all of the southeast, of course. So the only way that we are going to get our temps from the upper 30s to 32 degrees Fahrenheit or below is through that evaporative cooling process. And we are actually underway with that a little bit sooner than expected. That virga, or evaporating precip, has now overspread much of western North Carolina. So we're going to note those temperatures falling. The question is, how low will they get for some of the lower elevation areas, such as Asheville? And of course, the higher elevations will stand that higher chance or probability of hitting that 32 degree mark and even staying at or below that for much of the day tomorrow, whereas other areas of the mountains may get into the mid to upper 30s. One thing that we've noted on the recent model runs are temps being a little bit cooler than forecasted. Temps are running a little bit cooler than what's being currently put out on the grids by the National Weather Service, and we can take a peek at that. This first sounding is the ruck for 6Z, so shortly after midnight. You can see it already has the Asheville area saturated and just barely hanging around that 32 degree mark. So it's kind of going to be a borderline case of getting rain or freezing rain. Certainly going to be a tease of a system for anyone up watching it. We move over to the NAM, the same time period, 6Z, shortly after midnight, and you can see a little bit of a room for improvement, if you want to call it that, for those wanting some sleet and freezing rain. We'll note here this blue line is the wet bulb, so with that evaporative cooling, our temperature here, the red line, could cool to that point, which would take us below freezing at the surface. And we can take a look at the GFS at the same time period, noting the same thing. If we get some nice evaporative cooling going on, we could lower that temperature below the freezing mark, and we would realize some light accumulations of sleet and freezing rain. Once again, these soundings for the western North Carolina region. And then we step ahead in time to the early morning hours of Friday, this being the NAM model run. You can see it holding us right around that 32 degree mark with a saturated column, so precip is falling at this time. And then we take a look at the GFS, it too holding us right around that 32 degree mark, so it is certainly going to be a borderline case here. And then we step forward in time a little bit. We're going into the afternoon hour, shortly after noon, the NAM showing us getting into the mid 30s possibly, so we would have that switch over from frozen precip to liquid precip. That also being noted on the GFS run, us easing a little bit above that 32 degree mark. Now this is several degrees colder than what is currently being predicted, so we'll have to fine tune that in the forecasting sector as far as if we're going to reach that 40 degree mark or stay closer down to the freezing mark. Now for Asheville, this would mean a switch over to rain. However, the concern would be for the higher elevations across western North Carolina that would either remain at the 32 degree mark or across the mid to upper 20 degree range, and they would certainly see a higher sleet and freezing rain accumulation. Either way, some travel concerns will be noted for western North Carolina. I don't think it's going to be a huge issue as far as any power disruption. We're not seeing any high winds, nor are we going to see any significant ice accumulations that would cause concern for downing trees and power lines, though a few limbs could come down with some light ice accumulation. And let me step this NAM forward back to where I had it before, and you'll note the current precip underway does look remarkably similar to this. And then we step that forward in time, you see that next batch of precip forming that will fall in the form of sleet, snow, and freezing rain depending on your location here in the southeast, and then that overspreading much of the southeast. And of course, the closer you are here toward the southeastern section away from that colder air mass, you will see all rain. So going back over toward western North Carolina, that freezing rain advisory is in effect for much of western North Carolina, though the local model run from the National Weather Service out of Greenville, South Carolina, has the highest probability or highest accumulations of sleet and freezing rain across this escarpment of mountains here east of Asheville. And it is this higher area, or these areas of higher elevation, where we could see those temps hanging at or below freezing for the duration of Friday, and that in turn yields the higher freezing rain accumulations here. You can see a wide swath of upwards of 1/10 of an inch, but approaching 1/4 of an inch, if not a little touch over that, for the higher elevations that may realize those colder temperatures for a longer period of time. Here in Asheville, maybe up to 1/10 of an inch. We'll see if we even get close to that. At this point, I'm not too confident about that, so we'll have to fine tune it in that department a little bit more. And then I just want to take a peek at GR level 3 radar here. You can see some patchy precip across Louisiana and Mississippi, but these ice reports, you can see here, Highway 10 was closed as of about 3:30 this afternoon. And then some other notes here. icy bridges and whatnot, icy roads. And once again, we did have that one fatality here in Mississippi. So you really got to be careful out there, guys. There it goes right there. Happened to land on that by chance. One fatal from icing on roadways. So though this precip is light and spotty, it is causing localized travel concerns. And then we drift a little bit further northeast here across northern Alabama and North Georgia. Here in the Clayton area, 1/10 of an inch of snow on grassy surfaces. And then back here across northern Alabama, we saw some impressive totals today. There is a 3-inch report somewhere. There's a 2-inch report. And then one of these locations, there it is right there in Marshall County, got 3 inches of snow, and of course some more scattered wintry precip on the way. So it's going to be a spotty event for here in the southeast, though some people may realize some pretty nice accumulations of snow, sleet, and freezing rain. So we'll continue fine-tuning that forecast as it relates to temperatures here across western North Carolina, and we'll see exactly how much freezing rain does end up falling. And I want to leave you guys with a video that I just cannot get enough of. Every time I see it, I get a big smile on my face, and I'm hugely jealous for Jim Cantore, and I wish I could have been out there, him getting 2 very impressive lightning strikes while he was broadcasting that blizzard from Chicago. So here you go, folks. Have a good night.
I heard it was a busted up those cars are oh, Jesus! Listen to that! Son of a... That's unbelievable! Oh, my goodness! Holy smoke! Just incredible! Robbie! Twice in one